Good morning. Buenos dias. Welcome to the Lake Chapala Unitarian Universalist Congregation. I'm Pamela Cucinell. I serve on the Welcome Committee of this growing journeying community. Devorah Kelley, an interfaith community minister and member of LCUUF, will present the message today. We welcome all of you to our service, especially those of you who are searching for a spiritual home. Many of us once were too, seeking for something larger than ourselves, which we could belong to, a sense of rootedness, to hold us as we create meaning together. We do that well here, though not perfectly. In this congregation, we strive not for perfection, but for authenticity and connection. Whether it's your first time in worship with us or your 100th time, we hope that you'll find here questions that stretch you, I almost said people to defend you, and that's probably true too, people to befriend you, and liberal religious values that challenge you to join us in loving boldly, living justly, and welcoming radically. And so, live from Fellowship Hall, it's our LCUUF Sunday service. And now a special welcome to our visitors. If you're visiting with us for the first time or have returned or reconnected after a long absence, we invite you to say your name and tell us where you're from. And if you're on Zoom, use the Zoom raise hand feature and we'll ask you to unmute. If you're in the room, just raise your hand. We'll start with the people in the room.
Good morning. My name is John Beery. I'm here with my sister Colleen. First trip to visit her, so I'm happy to join you all this morning and also be here in memory of my mother. So thank you.
Hi, Bill Westcott, son of Jean Haley, and part of the Paul and Paula fan club. I'm here with my partner, Kathleen, from Seattle.
Welcome. Anyone else? No? Okay. So let's switch to those on Zoom. Is there anyone new with us on Zoom?
Yes, Joyce, if you would unmute and...
This is our daughter, Amy Kinnear. She's visiting us from Sacramento, California this week.
Very good.
Is that it, Richard?
That's it.
Okay, thanks so much. And just a brief note, we offer a wide variety of services on various topics presented by our members, outside guests, as well as our minister, Reverend Matt Alsbaugh. We welcome you to return to sample this variety of thought and belief. A reminder that our announcements were on the slideshow before the service and were also sent out by email yesterday in the newsletter. If you're new and would like to receive emails for upcoming services, please talk to a member of our welcome team or write to us at info@lakechapalauu.org. You can also check our website at lakechapalauu.org. Our opening words this morning by Arlen Goff, entitled Thresholds. Thresholds, we cross them every day, from room to room, from outside to inside and back again, from here to there, from anywhere to everywhere, from age to age.
Each each threshold offers an opportunity for change, for renewal, for transformation, from where we were and where we are to what we can be.
In this hour and in this place, we cross a threshold from our everydayness into space and time, attuned to the other, to the sacred, to the holy, into an awareness of new life, pregnant with possibilities.
How will we be renewed in this moment? How will we be changed in this hour? How will we be transformed through this gathering of our beloved community?
Come, you longing, thirsty souls. Come, let us worship together. Our chalice lighting words for liminal time are by Summer El-Bayeti.
In betwixt and in between, we move in the liminal spaces that show shades of what can be, what can become, and what can be.
We light this chalice as a symbol of courage to move into that time of this and that, and not this and that.
With patience and faith and love and hope, that this time will pass like the sun that moves in between rising and setting.
Reminding us that beauty resounds in betwixt and in between. Now let us light our chalice with these words that we sing together.
Rekindle this light in celebration for the life that we share.
As the rose tree is composed of the sweetest flowers and the sharpest thorns, as the heavens are sometimes overcast, alternately tempestuous and serene, so our lives, intermingled with hopes and fears, with joys and sorrows, with pleasure and pain. This is the time in our service that we can share our joys, our sorrows, and our milestones. Just a sentence is enough. We can ask for more details later. We will start with the folks in the room to give those on Zoom a chance to type joys or sorrows into the chat to be read out loud by the Zoom host. First, let us recall the joys. Whatever you may be celebrating, whatever evokes a feeling of joy or peace for yourself or others. Are there any joys? Oh, joys are popping. Any joys that people would like to share here in the room?
My name is Jane Castleman, and today is the 4th anniversary, if you want to call it that, of the death of our grandson shortly before he was 3. And my joy is that following the anger and hurt, and we are coming together again as a family.
I am absolutely overjoyed that the concert I produced last weekend at Lakeside Little Theater sold out a week before. We made 130,000 pesos for Mama Cleo's Boys Home.
Paul and I have been celebrating Jean Haley's 87th birthday, and part of the celebration has been that Bill, her son, came down, and her, the 2 other children, Julie and Bob, and they're just wonderful visitors. We've had great conversations, and Bill may not know it, but he's really a UU type because he's Hindu, Catholic, and humanist.
Hi, I'm Liz England. My joy is that I met Jan Manning here, and I'm going to move in with her and live with her tomorrow.
Wow. Okay. Are there any joys to be shared on Zoom?
Yes, there are from John DeWall. All my 3 sons will be here in Chapala to help me celebrate my 90th birthday on August 15th. They're on their way as I'm writing this to you. And that's it.
Thank you, Richard. Now let us voice our sorrows, whatever you or the world may be holding, that is in need of our healing and caring thoughts. Are there any sorrows that people in the room would like to share?
Hi, I'm thinking a lot about the people on Maui. Years ago, I was married there with my present wife, so I have a lot of special feelings for that lovely island. Joining all of you in our prayers for that place.
Along the same lines, I have great sadness for our planet and the environment, and I wore my shirt that I bought in Maui, and I've been there many times to Lahaina.
Me again. Maybe you remember Ilona, who came with me last time. Sadly, she decided she can't come anymore. She's 94 and just doesn't have the energy, and she couldn't hear anything. So it's a shame because she has been a UU for a long time.
Oh, Devorah.
I'm Devorah. I have 4 cousins. One of them I haven't seen since she was 2, but the other 3, because we live near each other, we're very close. And my middle cousin, Scott, was diagnosed, I think, in December with pancreatic cancer. And I saw him in May, and he was really doing well. I just got word from his sister that he probably won't make it through the fall. So that's hard. He's the first of our generation. Well, actually, it doesn't matter. But I'm holding Scott in my heart.
Are there any sorrows to be shared on Zoom?
Yes, from Christine. Sorrow, my husband, my soulmate and savior many times over during the past 38 years, passed away unexpectedly Monday, August the 7th. I feel broken without him. And that's it.
Thank you. And this candle from our care team represents the joys and sorrows we hold in the silent sanctuary of our hearts. We light this candle for all those unspoken sorrows and joys. Let us share a moment of this silence to hold in our hearts both the sorrows and the joys that have been shared with us this morning. The light of our chalice would soon flicker and die without the oil that nourishes its flame. And just as this flame cannot burn without oil, our fellowship cannot survive or thrive without the financial support as well as personal support of its members and friends. This is the oil that keeps the flame of our liberal religious faith alive and fuels the shared mission and ministry of this fellowship. Now let us give freely and generously, an offering to sustain and strengthen our shared religious community, a community of memory, hope, faith, and love. For we are now the keepers of its flame that burns for justice, its dreams of beloved community, its vision of a world made whole. There's Francisco. Gracias. And while you're considering your gifts to the fellowship, remember that each month LCUUF donates 5,000 pesos or more to an organization in our lakeside community. We share 1/2 of the offering collected at the fellowship each week with that organization. For the month of August, we are supporting Tepewa Centro Comunitario. The Tepewa neighborhood is situated on the hillside above downtown Chapala. It's considered one of the poorest neighborhoods in the state of Jalisco. Their vision is to help a village to help itself, to create a place for the poor of the village to go for food, counseling, guidance, and help of any kind. If you're not attending the fellowship in person, please donate to Share the Basket when you pay your pledge. Right, online, and please indicate the part of your donation that is for Share the Basket. The offering has now been given and gratefully received. A meditative moment.
Good morning. So, I've had so many questions since this topic came up. What is liminal space? And why am I even talking about it? Well, I'll get to the what in a minute, but for now, let me give you a brief why. It's because each and every threshold that we encounter in our lives offers an opportunity for change, for renewal, for transformation from what we were, what we are, and to what we can be. How many of you, and I want a show of hands, how many of you are familiar with the term liminal space? Okay, about half. How about the term threshold? Oh, much more, much more. Well, the word liminal comes from the Latin word limen, L-I-M-E-N, which means threshold. Great. The word threshold originally comes from those reeds and thrushes that they put on the floors of the houses in early days. Well, they put a piece of wood in the doorway so that the thresh wouldn't fall out. So it was the threshold. Okay? Makes sense. Modern definitions include the means or place of an entry. So when you walk into your house, you're crossing the threshold. The place or point of a beginning, the point or level at which a physical or mental effect begins to be produced. To be in a liminal space means to be on the precipice of something new, but not quite there yet. You can be in liminal space physically, emotionally, or metaphorically. And being in liminal space can be very uncomfortable for most people, many people. Just a side note, when my daughter heard I was doing a sermon on liminal space, she said to me, "Mom, you hate being in liminal space." So I always say that I need to sometimes hear what I'm saying in order to make sense of a fear or whatever. So thus you have me today talking about liminal space. So last week, Reverend Matt shared that our lease for this building will be not renewed for 2024, which is certainly a disruptive and uncomfortable event for us here at the fellowship. And as I was finishing putting the service together, I realized we have entered liminal space as a fellowship, because we're on the threshold of leaving what we know, this space, and yet we don't know where or when our new home will be. So we're in that place where it can be a little uncomfortable, and thank goodness for those of you who have said yes to being on the task force to give us a new home eventually, sooner rather than later. So I invite you to hear today's message, both for yourselves, especially if you're feeling you're in liminal space, and for our fellowship, okay? We're often in liminal space without even realizing it. Dawn and dusk, that time in between sleeping and waking, airplanes. I never thought of airplanes, but if you think about it, we're not where we left and we're not in our destination yet. We're up in space, hoping we make it to the other side. Stairwells, elevators, escalators, all of those things that we take for granted, and they're just very momentary ones, but that's liminal space. And of course, you can't get from one room to the next in your house without crossing a threshold. So think of that early morning time, okay? I know I had it this morning, when you're floating between sleeping and waking, and maybe your dreams are part of your consciousness, but you're not sure if they're real. Did that really happen? Or am I still dreaming? Well, it's not until you fully awake that you are out of that liminal space. And at times that extraordinary experience of dream life can become superimposed on the structure of your real life. And then your brain wakes up and you go, oh no, okay, that was a dream, okay? This is a good example of liminal space. There's another example that comes from nature that I know everyone's familiar with, the metamorphosis of a caterpillar into a butterfly. So inside that chrysalis, the caterpillar goes through a profound transformation. I mean, think about it. This little worm-like thing goes into this cocoon, becomes goo, and undergoes a complete reorganization of its cellular structure. And then, as the book, The Very Hungry Caterpillar says, he becomes a beautiful butterfly. In this liminal space, the caterpillar experiences discomfort, darkness, and confinement. Yet it's in the cocoon, it's within that cocoon that its transformation and ultimate beauty takes place. I don't know if you've heard the thing where someone tried to rush the thing and pull the cocoon open to help the caterpillar, and it didn't emerge. We have to be in the liminal space until it's done with us. People's stories about turning points in their lives can often, not all the time, but often, involve a disruptive event, like losing your lease. There's a moment when the old rules and the ways of being are no longer tenable, and ultimately a shift happens that changes the course of a person or an organization's life. The disruptive event shifts one into liminal space where the transformation can happen. So often liminal space feels like you're walking on a path without a map. You don't have a map. Your feet wander aimlessly looking for the next stone or the next path to go on, but it's not there yet. So doubt can creep in. The fear of the unknown comes knocking at your door. And even though you may have made that leap, maybe off a virtual cliff, the liminal space can feel very scary, especially when it's part of a big, really big decision, a huge leap of faith. When the decision about leaving the known job, the known security, the known friends, the known life, or maybe especially when to remain just doesn't feel right, and where the next step in the path is uncertain, the path forward is not always clear. So I want you all, because there's a few of you who may have been born here, but think of the time when you made the decision to move to Mexico, whether it's full-time or part-time. Think about what it took to actually make that move. I'd be willing to bet for some of you it might have been a very easy transition between what was and what was to be. For others, maybe not so easy. Our reasons may have varied, but there was a moment, or maybe more than a moment, when we were in that in-between time. We were not in familiar territory, and we were not in our new reality, especially if we were in an airplane. I know for me, personally, it was a time of loss of my former life and uncertainty as to what my new life in Mexico would be. I know you know this, most of you know this story, but sometime around 2018, 2019, my husband of many years was diagnosed with dementia, and I entered a time of great upheaval and transition. And then came 2022. Remember 2022 when COVID hit? And 2020, it even says 2020. Okay, the bells threw me off. Then came 2020, and we all know what happened. COVID appeared and disrupted life as we knew it. Did you realize we were living in liminal space for the last 3 years? Right? And I hadn't thought about it that way, but looking back, that's exactly what it was. And then in March of 2021, someone mentioned Mexico. And my guidance was so strong, the voice was so loud, and I knew what I needed to do. But I had to leave my children and my youngest grandson. I had to leave my friends. We'd lived there for 40 years. I had to leave my church, my UU church of 30 years that I'd been a really long time part of, to go to a place where I knew no one except 2 women who I knew from Facebook. Kim Bushore Maki, the founder of Shakti in the Mountains in Tennessee, says this: use the liminal space to move toward what you want rather than to avoid what you cannot change. I'm going to say that again. Sorry, Kate. Use the liminal space to move toward what you want rather than to avoid what you cannot change. Again, think of our fellowship. Okay. I couldn't change my husband's diagnosis, but what I could change was how I handled it. For him and for us. What I wanted, what I needed, was a place that, for my husband, that wouldn't break the bank, would give him the kind of care that I felt I could no longer give him. And so we moved here to Ajijic. I took that leap of faith. And I found warmth of both climate and culture, and I found LCUUF and all of you. So I've learned that it's okay when I feel I don't know exactly where my path, where my life is taking me. And to be honest, it can sometimes be exhilarating. Maybe not when you're right in the moment of it, but it can be. I can take a deep breath. I can trust that I'm where I need to be. And when I listen deeply enough, the answers do come. Here's another time in my life when a little more fun, when I took a leap of faith that led to living in that uncertainty of liminal space. So in 1972, I was teaching special ed at the junior high level in Massachusetts. I'd been there for 2 years, and I decided I needed to go back to school to find out what was typical development. So I applied to the University of New Hampshire and the University of Rhode Island. I just knew, I knew it was the right thing to do. So I took a leap and I resigned from my teaching job before I'd heard from either college. So for about 2 weeks, I was in liminal space of not here, but not there yet. I was on the threshold of a huge change for renewal, on the threshold from what I was, a teacher with its paycheck, to what I could be, a graduate student wondering where the money was going to come from. A scary place, and yet I followed that inner guidance, knowing that this next step was exactly what I needed to do. And then came relief. I had done what my intuition was telling me, and I was accepted to both of the schools, but I chose to go to the University of Rhode Island. And the very first graduate student happy hour, I met my husband. Yeah. So here's another thing about inner guidance, what I've always called heart whispers. Those little flutters of inner knowing.
sometimes it could be a gut instinct, that make you feel truly aligned with your purpose. It takes practice, but dang it, when those messages come through and line up clearer than you could have imagined, it proves that you can trust yourself and your guidance. So it's not my head. When I use just my head, I get in trouble. It's when I listen to my heart that things seem to work out best. Now, my heart doesn't speak with a loud voice. It's soft and subtle. But liminal space is about sitting in that soft and subtle place, that time of not knowing. Be without an answer. Be with your heart so you can listen to those whispers and let go of expectations about when you might have an answer. So by now you've seen that liminal space is a place of transition, a place where you can finally let go of the trapeze bar and you find yourself free falling, and you hope that the grace that has carried you this far will still be with you as you sail through the air, no safety net, no trapeze bar swinging to meet you. I'm going to leave you with that image for just a minute as we listen to a reading and a song, and then I'll be back.
Today's reading is by Brenda King, a modern-day medicine woman. I often think of liminal space and transformation much like a trapeze act. You can't move to the next way of being until you let go of your present self. But in order to do so, there is a period of being between. It takes a leap of faith and sometimes trust in the safety net to let go and grab for the next thing. It is in that moment of suspension between realities or between truths that is sacred. It is a state of truly being with a capital B. There are smaller moments in our lives that also provide an experience of liminal space. The act of waiting rather than reacting can allow old patterns and ways of being to fall away as we consciously choose to act in a new way. In doing so, we let the old world fall apart and a new world is possible. This next song is the all too infrequent reminder of, in our faith, to be here now, be present to this moment of life. It's what we hope for when we meditate or pray. For a few moments anyway, what you seek is found here. In this moment, in a place where the angels can speak and our hearts can open.
Great
I love that last line. The windows of my heart open to the day. As Unitarian Universalists, we can recognize that liminal space is a natural part of the human experience. Rather than fearing the unknown, we can approach it with openness, curiosity, and compassion. In these sacred thresholds, we can find the transformative power, both individually and collectively. To navigate liminal space, we must cultivate practices that ground us and nurture our souls. Meditation, prayer, reflective journaling, and engaging in intentional dialogue with others can guide us through the labyrinth of uncertainty. And if you were here last week, those are the exact same things Reverend Matt mentioned as a way to do the work of bringing our outside selves, our inside selves out. So we like the continuity. These practices can help us listen to the whispers of the divine and connect us with the wisdom that resides within each of us, those heart whispers. Writer and former pastor Felicia Merle describes the inherent uncertainty of transition this way. In the radiance of dark, there is process, the unfolding of mystery, things words cannot articulate, a threshold to freedom the mind cannot comprehend. But the body feels, the heart knows. This is liminality, the threshold of transition from death to life, from evening to morn, from gestation to giving birth. The unknown is part of it all. And I love this. This is a translation of the Bible in contemporary English, which is the New International Version from Luke 23 and 24. May the disorientation of life and events, the liminal space we find ourselves in, be a place where our faith is built. I looked up the original, it didn't say that. Franciscan friar and ecumenical teacher, Father Richard Rohr, and this is thanks to June, he describes this place most vividly. Liminal spaces, therefore, are a unique spiritual position where human beings hate to be, but the biblical God is always leading them. And if God is not your word, just translate. It is when you have left the tried and true, but have not yet been able to replace it with anything else. Liminal space transforms us when we're attentive to the presence of God, goddess, nature, wakan tonkin, whatever word, it's that supreme, in times of change. Liminal space is a very good phrase for those special times, events, and places that open us up to the sacred. These are more of his thoughts on liminal space. The very vulnerability and openness of liminal space, where we are betwixt and between, in transitions, allows room for something genuinely new to happen. It is a graced time, but it often doesn't feel very graced in any way. In such a space, we're not certain or in control. We're empty and receptive. Blank tablets waiting for new words. I love that image. Liminal space is where we are most teachable because we are most humbled. End quote. So it should come as no surprise then that we genuinely avoid, if we can, being in liminal space. Yet much of the work of authentic spirituality and human development is to get people into liminal space and keep them there long enough so they can learn something very essential and new. Nicole Connor, a narrative therapist in Australia, says this about the experience of being in liminal space. Liminal spaces expose the unnerving reality that we are really not in control in the way we think we are. Liminal spaces confront us with our innate craving for certainty. Liminal spaces show us that ambiguity and paradox are part of what it means to be human and on the journey with the divine. It's not in the knowing, it is in the not knowing that grace shines. I'm going to repeat that. It is in the not knowing that grace shines. So can liminal space be a catalyst for spiritual awakening? Perhaps yes. We all need to consciously spend time at the thresholds of our lives. Liminality is a form of holding the tension between one space and another. It's in these transitional moments in our lives that authentic transformation can happen. Otherwise, it's just business as usual and an eternally boring status quo existence. Raise your hand if you want that. Didn't think so. So it's in these moments of uncertainty that we are invited to trust the process, to have faith in the unseen, and to listen to the whispers of our heart. Over time, I've seen the need for such liminal spaces again and again. Without some sort of guidance and reframing, we don't understand the necessary ebb and flow of life, the highs and the lows, the need to embrace our tears and our fears, as well as our triumphs and our successes. Without standing on the threshold for a little bit longer than we're comfortable, maybe a lot longer sometimes, we can't see beyond ourselves to the broader and more inclusive world that lies before us. Liminal space provides a resting place between what was and what is yet to be. It's a place and a time of great potential if we allow ourselves to have faith that we are where we need to be. And back to the image of that free falling from a trapeze bar, maybe, because remember I said there was no safety net? What if our faith and our trust in the process is our safety net when we find ourselves in that place of uncertainty about what our future may hold? Just think about that for a minute. Faith and trust as a safety net. As we navigate the liminal spaces in our own lives, please remember these are not times of weakness, but rather sacred thresholds of transformation. They're the invitation to step into the unknown and embrace the vast potential that lies within us. May we have the courage to let go of what no longer serves us, to surrender to the mystery, to emerge from these transitional spaces as beings of greater wisdom, greater strength, and greater love. Before I close, I want to share an aha moment I had as I was looking for some music for this service, which I ended up not using. But I found a very familiar hymn. In fact, I think we sang it a couple weeks ago. And I was struck not just by the words, but the image that was with the words. So I want to share that with you. Touch the earth, reach the sky. All are born and all shall die. Life's the time left in between. And I went, OMG. Our entire life, from the time we leave the warmth and the security of the womb until we take that leap into the unknown at the end of our life, we as humans live in liminal space. I don't know about you, but that was like, oh my goodness. So my hope is, as I finish up, that we view this time at LCUUF as an opportunity for change, for renewal, for transformation, that we embrace this time spent in liminal space, both individually and collectively, with open hearts, open minds, and a steadfast commitment to justice, love, and compassion. And we just might transform ourselves and our fellowship into something that we can't even imagine at this point in time. May it be so. So, okay, that's some heavy stuff. Thank you. So I invite you into a time of quiet reflection. So get comfortable. You can close your eyes or just do that soft vision. And I invite you to recall a time when you may have found yourself in liminal space, that time of transition, change in direction in your life, a place of uncertainty that lasted for a time, a place where you were neither forward nor back nor behind, as the song we heard said. So bring into your mind's eye, into your awareness, this time that you may have spent in liminal space as we sit and listen to this beautiful music. And remember to keep breathing. We'll be quiet together for a few moments. In conclusion, let us embrace the liminal spaces in our lives with open hearts and open minds. Let us trust that the discomfort and any uncertainty we may encounter are part of a divine process of growth and transformation. Remember, it is in the cocoon of liminal space that we have the opportunity to discover our true selves and unfold our wings and fly. May each of us embark on this sacred journey with courage, grace, and a deep sense of trust. Amen. Blessed be. May it be so.
Muchas gracias. Thank you, Devorah. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth. Oh, I'm sorry. We can read these words together. I was in liminal space. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we keep in our hearts and share with all the world.
I usually try to find a service associate my height, but it didn't work this time.
And I can't wear heels anymore.
And she wouldn't wear heels, so. So this has been kind of a heavy, quiet, reflective time, so we're going to end it with something a little more up. Not that that wasn't up, but. So this closing hymn is an African-American spiritual, which I've chosen as kind of a request, even a prayer, if you would, for as we live our lives approaching liminal spaces that may, hopefully this will shift us out of our comforts. Wait a minute. Approaching liminal spaces that may shift us out of our comfort zone. We can't do it alone. We need others who will bear witness to our journey, to guide our feet, hold our hand, stand by us, and help us search our hearts for the truth of who we are and what we will do with this one precious life we've been given. I invite you to stand and sing along, and please, if you're so moved, dance or at least move your bodies.
This race.
And not only is she taller, but her voice is higher, and mine is very low. Our worship is over. Our service begins.
Go with peace and with a purpose.
Gracias. Oh, that was wonderful. Very